Early in the morning, just after sunrise, a farmer in Ghana's main farming region walks along the edge of his land. On one side are young cashew trees planted in straight lines. They look healthy and promising, and everyone is saying cashew is good money. On the other side is an empty stretch of land. Not long ago, maize grew there. Yams did too, big enough to feed a family. He stops by a tree stump and runs his hand over it. He starts thinking the way farmers often do, about the farming seasons, the loans he still owes, and the people waiting to eat at home. The cashew trees are new and will take time to pay off. The cooking pot at home has been used for years and needs to be filled with food today. He stands there for a moment, wondering which will really take care of his family first. This is a story about a crop that's spreading fast, about land with a long memory, and about people trying to earn a living today without risking what they'll eat tomorrow. The video focuses on how cashew farming is expanding in Ghana's main food-producing areas, and how global markets, government decisions, and local power all shape what happens on the ground. We'll trace how land and labor move from village meetings all the way to export ports. And we'll keep coming back to one straightforward but important question. As more land is turned into cashew orchards, what happens to everyday food on people's plates? By the end of this video, you'll have a clear picture of what's really going on. You'll see why cashew farming has taken off so fast in Bono East, and Ahafo regions of Ghana, and who is driving that change. You'll also understand how planting cashew trees is quietly changing the way land is owned and passed down within families. The video will look at what all this means for migrant farmers, everyday farm workers, and the growing gap between those who own land and those who don't. Finally, it will ask an important question. When Ghana's main food-producing region shifts from growing food to growing export crops, what happens to food security? For a long time in Ghana, land has been more than just soil. It has shaped who people are, how they live, and who holds power. During the colonial period, things began to change. From early plantation farming in the 18th century to the cocoa boom in the 20th century, farmers were gradually pulled into global markets. Shared lands were taken over, and farming became more about selling crops than feeding families. By the 1920s, the Gold Coast was producing around 40% of the world's cocoa. This success made export crops seem like the best path to progress. Over time, that idea became part of national development plans and influenced the everyday choices farmers made about what to grow and how to use their land. The Bono East, Ahafo regions became known as Ghana's food hub because it produced large amounts of maize, yam, cassava, beans, and other staples. At the same time, the same land was also used to grow export crops like cocoa and, more recently, cashew. Because food crops and long-term cash crops are now competing for the same land, this has created the land struggles people are facing today. Cashew was first introduced in Ghana in the 1960s, but it didn't take off right away. For many years, production remained low and growth was slow. Things began to change from the 1980s through the 2010s, when government reforms opened up agricultural markets and development partners encouraged farmers to grow crops meant for export, including cashew. By 2015, Ghana was producing about 85,000 metric tons of raw cashew nuts. Most of this, around 98%, was exported to Asia, reflecting strong global demand and Ghana's push to diversify its economy. Soon, we'll go into village councils and family compounds to see how a tree that takes years to bear fruit can quietly change who controls the land around it. Political ecology is basically asking a simple question: who benefits, who loses, and who's calling the shots when something in nature gets turned into a product to sell? In the Bono East, Ahafo regions, the way cashew has taken off isn't just about farmers switching crops. It's really about who gets access to the land and the profits. Chiefs, family heads, local elites, and even newcomers are all figuring out how to fit old traditions into these new market pressures. Power isn't just about having the right to something. It's about actually being able to control it. Take cashew, for example. As it spreads, people need secure land for the long term to make their investment pay off. That push for long-term use ends up driving land that used to be shared to become private, controlled by individuals. And usually, it's the people who can get the right papers, pay for surveys, or use their social status who end up in charge. Next, we go over to two neighboring towns, Wenchi and Kintampo. It's the same tree in both places, but people treat it differently. And now it's even causing arguments over who should inherit what. In Wenchi, among the Bono people, land has always been handled through the family. It's matrilineal, which basically means the family head takes care of the land, and everyone in the family can use it to grow food and take care of themselves. The idea is that the land doesn't belong to any one person. When someone dies, the land goes back to the family. Cashew farming has started to change that a bit. Once someone plants cashew trees, some farmers try to get leases or even write wills so the land can pass directly to their own children. So slowly, people are using legal paperwork to turn what used to be family land into something more like personal property. If you head north to Kintampo, you'll find the Mo people, where farmland is usually shared among families. But even here, cashew trees are starting to change things. Farmers plant them on the communal land and then work out deals or inheritances to make sure their kids have exclusive rights to those plots. So, in both places, these trees are quietly shaking up who owns what. And it all happens pretty slowly, following the life of the tree. But then, what happens when money and distance get involved? When city folks or overseas burghers show up with cash and connections? We'll get to that next. When cashew prices started going up, the local elites and the burghers, Ghanaians living abroad with money, began snapping up stool and family lands. They often did this through relatives or connections in politics and business. The land titles got formalized, orchards got bigger, and meanwhile, the average small farmer was still stuck with just a couple of acres, while others were sitting on 40, 50, or even 100 to 200 acres. An expert who is chairperson of the Cashew Farmers Association in Wenchi stated that the average cashew farm here is about 2 acres, but some are 40, 50, 100 acres. Even parliamentarians have come to acquire land. One has about 200 acres. For migrant communities from the northern regions of Ghana, this kind of consolidation really limits what they can do. Before, they could negotiate for seasonal access to land, but now they're either being pushed off entirely or only allowed to farm in short bursts before the trees grow too big. Another farmer also said, "The Omanhene has leased the stool land to burghers. In Wiafe, many Dagabas had been farming, but now there's no place left for food crops. Some have relocated to search for land." A male migrant farmer showed that. The burghers, after buying the land, allow you to intercrop cashew with food for a while. When the trees grow, you must leave. Some will sack you immediately after they buy it. A female farmer from the indigenous community voiced, "Because the burghers are buying land, land is scarce here. Even if you own a piece, if you are not careful, someone wealthy would take it from you. It's like the land is being claimed bit by bit. Land deals were signed off, orchard farms were created over time. People start noticing the differences growing between those who have land and those who don't. And for the land poor, the options just keep shrinking. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. So before, migrants could get land by sharecropping or renting it. But now, with cashew, it's different. They're being offered this Tangia-style deal. You plant your maize, yams, or groundnuts between the young cashew trees and take care of the trees for about 3 years. Sounds okay at first, right? But once the cashew grows, the canopy closes, the roots spread out, and that's it. Your intercropping ends. You don't get the land, and you don't get any payment for all the work you put in. Another male migrant farmer voiced out that, "We keep the cashew clean for 3 years. When it starts to bear, our food cannot grow under it, and we are told to leave. The farm we helped build is no longer ours." Some people call it an efficient way to set up plantations. But for a lot of migrants, it just feels like they're being used for hard work with nothing to show for it. They're carrying the heaviest part of the job up front, while the benefits mostly go to someone else later. People haven't just accepted it, though. In places in the Kintampo area, you can really see it. Migrants are standing up, pushing back against having to take care of things without being paid, and against being kicked out without warning. Some people call it an efficient way to set up plantations. But for a lot of migrants, it just feels like they're being used for hard work with nothing to show for it. They're carrying the heaviest part of the job up front, while the benefits mostly go to someone else later. People haven't just accepted it, though. In places in the Kintampo area, you can really see it. Migrants are standing up, pushing back against having to take care of things without being paid, and against being kicked out without warning. The video looks at these tensions in the bigger picture of African farming life. How wealthy elites keep gaining more, how regular people are getting more dependent on wages, and how conflicts pop up when deals over land and labor start to feel unfair. Cashew just adds a new chapter to this story and keeps it going. In the Bono East and Ahafo regions, the food people grow there feeds the cities all over Ghana. But now, with more and more farmers planting cashew, there's less land for the usual food crops. Families are switching from food plots to cashew orchards, and markets are starting to notice the difference. Farmers and local officers are already warning that prices could go up and food might get harder to find, especially once the intercropping stops. A crop development officer at Wenchi communicated that cashew production will make the prices of food go high because every farmer is going into it. A female farmer from a farming indicated that cashew production will bring famine to this community. People say they will buy rice with cashew income. What if the rice is not available? It is maize that gives us food here. This will bring famine here and the rest of Ghana. A farmer also stated, "The tree crops are good, but they will bring famine. Some have planted cashew all over and there's no place left for food. It will be like Sefwi, no land for plantain again." An elderly male farmer mentioned, "If maize production reduces, there will be famine in the urban south. We supply the nation, and if production drops, the cost will increase." Intercropping is basically a temporary thing, usually for about 3 years, until the orchard is full and you can't grow food crops there anymore. So it gives families a bit of time to grow their own food and even sell some at the market. But the tricky part is, the biggest challenge hits right when the cashew trees start producing. Starting in the 1980s, Ghana really started paying attention to non-traditional exports like cashews. The government ran projects to see if cashew farming could really take off, while donors helped out by funding training, giving seedlings, and connecting farmers to markets all over Ghana and even West Africa. By 2015, Ghana was producing about 85,000 tons of cashews, and almost all of it, 98%, was exported. These numbers are often used to argue that it makes sense to invest even more in cashew production. When it comes to export-focused plans, they often don't take local land realities seriously. Cashew farming, for example, only makes sense if you can count on long-term access to land. That tends to push families to divide up their land individually and for wealthier, better-connected people to grab bigger chunks. The problem is, this can end up going against the policy's goals. So you get all this talk about reducing poverty, but on the ground, inequality can actually get worse. On top of that, when people swap staple food plots for cashew orchards, it can put extra pressure on the local food system. For migrants, the policy sounds like a promise of opportunity, but what they actually experience is moving from place to place, 3 seasons on one field, then having to start all over again. Any anti-poverty plan that ignores the fact that migrants don't have secure land just sets them up to stay stuck in that cycle. What are the downsides, risks, and externalities? And who bears them? Family land conflicts. Cashew farming often pushes families to make leases or wills that treat land as individual property instead of communal. That ends up causing fights within families and weakens the old ways that used to keep land sharing fair. Migrants getting pushed out. When chiefs or families lease or sell land to wealthy outsiders, migrant workers often get squeezed. They might only get temporary spots for farming, or worse, they can be kicked off entirely. Unequal labor. Some people spend years caring for the orchards, but never really own any land or get paid fairly. Over time, this makes class divides bigger and sparks resistance, like what happened in the Kintampo area, where migrant farmers were engaged in cropping on land belonging to the Mo ethnic group. These migrant farmers, while describing the land as not belonging to them, were protesting what they described as labor exploitation. Such tension and struggle between migrant farmers and landowners is not unique to cashew production and reflects broader agrarian tensions and class struggles in Africa. Based on our findings, we argue the promotion of cashew production, despite its championing as a pathway out of poverty for poor farmers, is driving impoverishment and dispossession through land accumulation and labor exploitation by landowners, local elites, and burghers. These processes of land accumulation and labor exploitation are, however, not without resistance, the outcome of which is manifest in class-based struggles. The emerging land capture and labor exploitation are critical to understand both historical and contemporary outcomes of agrarian change in Ghana. The seizure of land from migrant farmers, who mostly produce food as a source of livelihood, and its increasing conversion into cashew production, raises concerns for food production. With this as background, we now turn to discuss how cashew production is driving food insecurity concerns. Food security problems. As more land goes to cashew orchards instead of staple crops, local food prices go up and cities can run short. This gets even worse once the short-term intercropping stops. While some farmers expressed support for converting their land to cashew nut production, they also reflected upon the impacts on local food production. While farmers expressed concerns about a coming famine within their own communities, They similarly expressed concerns about famine in urban areas of Ghana that depended upon food grown in the Ahafo region. These emerging trends in Ghana's breadbasket resonate with evidence elsewhere in the global South, where local food growing has been replaced by the cultivation of export commodities, driving questions and challenges for local food security. Given widely shared concerns related to the challenges of export cashew production for local food security, a number of farmers described reserving a small portion of their land for the production of food for the household. In these cases, farmers described limiting food cropping to just those crops destined for household consumption. The remaining majority of the land was designated for cashew production. If this trend continues, the Ahafo region can be expected to have limited surplus food available to meet the demands of urban Ghanaians. Some farmers described the deployment of a range of other strategies as they attempted to remain food secure alongside the conversion of their farmland into cashew nut. Amongst these strategies included the practice of intercropping cashew trees with food crops, including maize, yams, groundnuts, and cassava. However, as detailed above, intercropping was described as only possible during the first 3 years of cashew farm establishment. After this, the cashew trees form a closed canopy and a spreading rooting system, which prohibits intercropping. The increasing production of cashew nuts in Ghana's breadbasket for sale in the global market can be understood as presenting an immediate threat to local food security, referring to both household-level and national food security. This is particularly worrying given that the Brong and Ahafo regions are suppliers of most of Ghana's local food requirements, especially for urban Ghanaians. Already, farmers in cashew-growing areas describe producing less food for themselves and for sale in the local markets. This is likely to pose significant challenges for ensuring the availability and accessibility of traditional food staples, both within the region and across Ghana. Power in few hands. Chiefs, family heads, and a few burghers end up controlling most of the land and deals. Meanwhile, regular smallholders often have just a couple of acres, while elites hold large swaths. Policy gaps. Government plans for cashew exports don't really think about fairness, protecting future generations' rights, or keeping staple foods safe. Because of that, the programs don't really help fight poverty the way they're supposed to. A migrant indicated that, "The land is not ours, we know, but we reject doing all the work for trees that remove us when they grow." Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. Cashew didn't just suddenly become important. It's part of a long story, going all the way back from colonial plantations, then cocoa, and later donor-backed exports. The goal isn't to turn our back on markets, but to make sure they don't hurt people and communities along the way. That means making sure everyone has secure land rights before planting long-term crops, protecting migrant workers and compensating people who take care of the land, keeping key areas for food crops safe in the main farming regions, making sure chiefs and families use their authority in a fair, transparent way. If we just leave the orchard alone, it can grow so much that ships are overflowing with fruit, while at home, your bowl stays empty. But with a bit of careful planning, you can make sure both are full. Here are 6 key takeaways. Land is memory and leverage. Cashew farming can turn land that's been used traditionally into officially documented claims, but that comes with social consequences. Be ready for them. Power moves upward. Wealthier people and outsiders tend to take the big opportunities, turning their money into large cashew orchards. Meanwhile, most small farmers are left with just a couple of acres. Migrant risk is real. Systems like Taungya put a lot of the hard work up front on farmers or laborers, while the bigger losses happen later. Make sure agreements include fair compensation and equity protections. Food security is a choice. Don't let staple food plots get lost inside zones meant for exports. Keep an eye on prices too, especially when intercropping options start to disappear. Policy should look beyond yield. Plans for cashew shouldn't just focus on how much is produced. They need to include secure land rights, fair labor rules, and checks on the wider food system. Disputes are clues. When people resist, it's usually a sign that something isn't working with governance. Use those moments to fix rules and create fairer deals for land and labor. Thank you for watching this video. In our next video, we focus more on the political economy of food and agriculture. Until then, check the channel for other investigations. Drop a comment with your perspective from the field or the policy desk, and share this with someone shaping land, labor, or food systems. Thanks for watching.